Here we go. This is now part 2. And this is me. Let me see. Am I in frame? I guess it doesn't matter necessarily. Yes, I am, though. Fair warning, I'm going to be looking up and back quite a bit. Mainly because I'm trying something where I just have the iPad sitting on a table, and I'm actually looking up because I have it AirPlayed up to my TV. So hopefully that'll get us a better view. So anyway, this is part 2 of my record collection. Previously, we looked at all of this, and I still am now realizing I should have really made this at least look a little bit neater before starting, but oh well. Let's start things off with the Eagles. This is their self-titled album. I'm honestly not a huge fan of the Eagles. Realistically speaking, I would kind of prefer what is it, like they aren't my favorites, but they do have some good songs and their records are mixed really well. Fun facts that doesn't necessarily apply to any of my records, but does matter to some early pressings. They would actually, not necessarily this one, I don't think, but some of the later ones would have like really weird cryptic messages in the dead wax. Like, I don't entirely know, I don't remember what they are, but they're like really strange and cryptic. If anybody happens to have like an Eagles record in their collection, it's worth checking out because, yeah, sometimes these things have unique things in the dead wax. Okay, so I can step back a little bit and, like... Okay, and I see. Alright, that'll have to work. Because of just kind of the weird arrangement I'm sort of forced to do. One of These Nights... This is another really good Eagles album. I'd say my favorite one is actually one I don't own, and it's Desperado. I think just the structure of that album is probably the best. And then those are the only 2 Eagles records I have. I used to have a couple more. I used to have like a Greatest Hits. I had In the Long Run. That might have actually been it, but like I said, I used to have some more Eagles records, got rid of a lot of them. Easy Rider, the soundtrack to the really, culturally significant 1960s movie, has like Steppenwolf, Jimi Hendrix, a lot of things, and it's one of the... In fact, it might be like the debuting role of Jack Nicholson. So, then we have Eddie and the Crusaders. Speaking of soundtrack albums, that has On the Dark Side by John Cassidy and the Beaver Brown Band. This is an interesting album. Okay, I have honestly no idea where I got this record, but I got it like this. It didn't have a case, it didn't have a paper sleeve, cardboard sleeve, anything like that. It's this band called Eden and their self-titled album. I've done a little bit of research into them, and I've only just now realized that my dog's ball is there, so fun. Essentially, this is an obscure metal band from the 1980s. I think this album came out in 1984, and it was based, I believe, out of the San Diego, Los Angeles area, something like that. Again, I have no idea how I came across this album, but I'm glad I did. It might have been my dad's, is the only thing I can think. But it's a good record. I My understanding is they were like some offshoot of another band. None of this is available on Spotify, unfortunately. But the full album is available on YouTube. And if you look at it, you will see a comment by me. And it will be, I think, basically, if not the only comment, it will be like one of two. And it's basically just me years ago being like, hey, I had no idea how obscure this album would be. I guess basically the comment section shows. But yeah, it's a strange thing. I don't have the sleeve for it, but they do exist. I believe it was. I don't believe that album was ever reissued. I looked at Discogs, and I think it only had the vinyl, and there might have been a CD pressing around the same time. But that might be the most interesting record I have in my collection, just for how obscure it is and how it's honestly a mystery that I have it. What is this? This one is. I need to look at the. Is this Electric Light Orchestra? It is, I think. Yeah, Electric Light Orchestra. Oh, there it is. Yeah, a New World Record. I had the record upside down. I was kind of confused. I love ELO. This one is Discovery, I believe. No, it's not. I don't remember which album this is, but here we have Out of the Blue. This one is Discovery. Out of the Blue is a fantastic double album, by the way, if you guys haven't listened to it. Old ELO, this is like kind of a compilation of sort of their greatest hits, which I think if you're listening to ELO as a compilation, you're kind of doing them a disservice, but, you know, it's cool that it exists for all the plebeians. I think this one is just called ELO, but it's one of their last albums, I think, for a while until Jeff Lynne kind of resurrected the band and, renamed it to Jeff Lynne's ELO, because I think a lot of the other members had died. Roy Wood. I think Roy Wood might be dead, actually, but he was in another band that we might get to in a little bit that I am absolutely in love with, called The Moob. Basically, kind of British bubblegum pop, but way more ambitious than I'm making it sound. I mean, bubblegum pop, yeah, it's disposable and kind of juvenile and meant to be like that on purpose, but it is by Roy Wood, who would go on to found ELO. So you can imagine there's going to be at least some sort of musical expertise involved in this record. So that's ELO. Or in that band, rather. This one is interesting. This is Danny Elfman's recent album. And, you know, a lot of albums are colored, you might notice. This one kind of takes it a step further. And it is... It's like a picture disc, but there's like two picture discs, and they both have like unique patterns. The second album has kind of like a unique pattern as well. But Danny Elfman, most of you will know him for soundtracking a lot of films, namely Tim Burton movies, but some other things too. He did like The Nightmare Before Christmas. He did Pee-wee's Big Adventure. He did a lot of things. Edward Scissorhands. very iconic. But before that, he was in Oingo Boingo, of course, which I know Dyer has mentioned before, so he's aware of them. And then he kind of, it's so surprising that he decided to even go back to doing like original albums based off of how he said on interviews like he does not think very highly of his work in Oingo Boingo. And this seems sort of like a natural progression of that. It's more proggy, but it's the same sort of general Danny Elfman weirdness. I really like the album, obviously, because I purchased it. But definitely, if you're a fan of Oingo Boingo, and even if you're a fan of Danny Elfman's soundtracks, because it kind of incorporates a lot of that influence as well, has a very like sort of spooby Tim Burton vibe throughout. Definitely check out Danny Elfman's new album. It came out, I think, last year. In fact, yeah, it came out last year. This one is... What is this? I need to actually take a quick look. Oh, right, it's Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Tarkus. I actually haven't listened to this album yet, but I keep hearing it's just as good as some of their more popular stuff, which, speaking of which, I actually had this in the wrong place. Emerson, Lake and Palmer, self-titled. Or I'm sorry, no, it's Brain Salad Surgery. That actually should go after Tarkus. And where is the self-titled one? I don't know. Here's Emerson, Lake and Palmer, live in concert. Again, sorry if I'm looking away through most of this. Here is Eminem, The Real Slim Shady. This is one of 2 rap albums I have. And not that I have anything against rap, it's just not really a genre that I like enough to where I want to own a lot of things on vinyl. This one, though, I mean, 1, it's a very iconic album, and 2, I just like it, you know, My Name Is, Role Model is probably my favorite track off this album. And finally, we have Europe. I believe that's the last one we have anyway. Yeah, Europe, The Final Countdown. I mean, it's cheesy, but honestly, you can't tell me with a straight face you don't like that song. Come on. The Faces, this is after they broke up after they were the Small Faces, and this is the Faces. This was fronted by Rod Stewart before he kind of went off and did his own thing. And in fact, some of the early songs from that I think a lot of people consider to be Rod Stewart are in fact off this album. A Wink is as good as a nod. Fiddler on the Roof. This is a more unique one that I happen to have. And it's one that I've had very early on in my vinyl collection. I own it for 2 reasons. 1, I love that artwork. It has a very kind of like traditional minimalist Russian art style, which, you know, obviously fits in with the source material. But also, I just think it's a pretty decent soundtrack. If I were a rich man. I don't know. I'm not usually a huge fan of musicals. I think I've said words to that effect on stream before. But Fiddler on the Roof is an exception for me. Fight. This is the Rob Halford band after he left Judas Priest and before he went on his own and did Halford. The Firm. This is Jimmy Page's band. It's Jimmy Page. Was Joe Perry? No, I'm thinking of the Joe Perry Project. I know for sure Jimmy Page was in the firm. This one is, what is this? Oh yeah, The Fix. Doesn't have any of their hits on it, but I liked the album well enough. Which one is this, actually? Sorry, I need to check some. Oh yeah, right, now I remember. Roberta Flack. This one I found relatively cheap. I think it was like $5, and it was like my only pick at this one record shop in that opened up in a mall. But I really like this album. So for context, I live in a very suburban area, and for lack of a better term, there's a lot of white people here. So you don't necessarily get a lot of like R&B, soul, even rap, reggae, genres that I really like but don't have a ton of access to. So it was nice to find this place not too far from me that had a Roberta Flack record. This one is Fleet Foxes, right? Yeah, Fleet Foxes. Apparently, I have a friend who was briefly in Fleet Foxes for a little while. And that's actually kind of how I found out about these guys. These Fleet Foxes have been indie darlings and critical darlings for a very long time, though. This is a big band, and I don't think my one friend like ever recorded any albums with them. And it's not like a close friend either. It's a friend I haven't actually met in several years, but it is kind of cool having that sort of, albeit very tenuous, sort of connection to Fleet Foxes. And then we have Fleetwood Mac, Rumors. This one is in the shrink wrap, which I'm very happy about. Even has like the hype sticker, if you can see that. I mean, this is one of my top 50 favorite albums of all time. I think it's like somewhere in the 30s or 20s. Here we have Mirage, Fleetwood Mac. Another very good album. Not as good as Rumors, but then again, you can only like perfect something that well once. John Fogerty, Centerfield. John Fogerty, of course, the vocalist, the frontman for Creedence Clearwater Revival, had his own, I was going to say short-lived solo career. It lasted quite a while, but it definitely only had one real hit album, I would say. That said, it's a very good album. If you like Creedence Clearwater Revival, albeit maybe with a little bit of 80s polish, check out John Fogerty's Centerfield. Also, there's, I think this one is just called Zombie, something like that. But another John Fogerty solo album. Not as good as Centerfield, but it's still John Fogerty, so it's still at least going to be tolerable. Foreigner. I have all of the Foreigner albums actually up to... Oh, shit. But, maybe it'll come to me, but... yeah, the last one before Lou Gramm left the band. Double Vision. There's a bunch of different variants of this album cover. This is the blue one. There's a red one. There's a pink one. There's, I think, a purple one. There's a bunch of different variations. And depending on where you look, it'll, like, show... Like, Spotify, I think, has a different variation than the one I have. But I don't think any of the variations are particularly rare. But it is pretty cool that... you know, like for record collectors, it's kind of like an incentive if you're that kind of collector to, you know, get them all. Head Games, not a fantastic album, definitely not as good as the first two, but it does have Rev on the Red Line, which I think is a really good song. Also, Dirty White Boy is a good one. Foreigner 4, my favorite Foreigner album. Very autobiographical. I think a lot of people just sort of think of it as like accessible corporate rock, which to be fair it is, but it's kind of autobiographical about like Lou Reed's life. Like Jukebox Hero was sort of like his call to arms to be like a rock and roll star, and Waiting for a Girl Like You was about a girl that he liked in real life, and a bunch of different things. It's actually kind of a loose concept album, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. My one friend, the reason I have so much Foreigner, by the way, it's not even because I'm like a huge fan of Foreigner, but my one friend really is. He's met Lou Gramm, I think, a couple of times, and even had a phone interview with him once, because sort of like a bunch of circumstances, but basically he knew someone who was related to Lou Gramm, who was the singer of Foreigner, and kind of got to like ask a couple of questions. He was just all around a huge fan of Foreigner, and saw them in concert a couple times, obviously. Agent Provocateur. Actually, I will stress he saw Lou Gramm in concert, because now they actually tour separately. Foreigner's vocalist now, I think, is Mick Jones, who was always kind of a secondary vocalist. But Lou Gramm, I think it's called the Lou Gramm Band, and it's mostly just Foreigner songs. Which one? Oh, Inside Information, that's it. This is the last album of the 80s. There's a couple other Foreigner albums that are kind of harder to get a hold of. Unusual Heat, which, correct me if I'm wrong, was one of the worst selling albums, I believe, on Atlantic Records. Came out in 1992, had a totally different vocalist. I mean, just a whole bunch of circumstances. I mean, it came out after, Nevermind kind of changed the music scape. It had a different vocalist, and honestly, the album itself just wasn't that good anyway. If you were an 80s legacy band, you could succeed in the 90s, post Nirvana. You just had to try really hard, and I don't think that the passion was all there in that album. But that one's pretty rare. I'm not even entirely sure if it was released on vinyl. And then I think there was like maybe 2 other ones, neither of which I have and neither of which are very good. The Four Seasons is the greatest hits. Again, I just really like the album art of this one, and I'm a huge Frankie Valli fan. I love his voice. I mean, the falsetto can be kind of annoying, I guess, but realistically, he just has like a bunch of different, just like really good songwriting as well. Here we have, where's the, oh, there it is. We have Aretha Franklin, Spirit in the Dark. Definitely you want to learn more about Aretha Franklin, the documentary, the biopic that was just released, Respect, very good one. I I'm a sucker for biopics. Like, on one hand, I will kind of criticize the industry because that's kind of all they're doing is like biopics and remakes. Like, oh, the story's already there, so we will just, tell the story and not really have to do a whole lot of hard work in actually making a movie. And I'm a sucker. I will buy these movies. I will pay to see them, but the industry, man, it's just, it's dead. It's dead in the water, and it has been for the past 20 years. This one is Peter Gabriel. Which album is this, actually? I can't tell. Security, I believe it is. I don't know, it's kind of hard to read. But Peter Gabriel. This one is So by Peter Gabriel. This is probably his most famous solo work. You have like Sledgehammer, Taking It All Away, those songs. A bunch of good stuff on that album, though. Definitely don't sleep on it. Which one is this? Is this a Genesis record? No, it's not. It's I need to like. Oh, right. Sorry, I had to look at it. It's Gentle Giant, Octopus. This is actually another one of my favorite albums. I wouldn't say I'm like a huge diehard fan of the band Gentle Giant. I've always been very hit or miss on prog music. Either I love it or I just think it's like an overly pretentious bore. Gentle Giant definitely fits the niche of like it's prog, but it's not absolutely insane. And Octopus definitely fits that void the best, in my opinion. Going back to Peter Gabriel, we have Genesis 3 Sides Live. Actually, was that a Phil Collins record? I can't remember. I'm pretty sure it might have been a Phil Collins record where he did the vocals. In fact, yeah, you know what? I'm almost positive now. Genesis self-titled. That one's definitely Phil Collins. I personally prefer Phil Collins to Peter Gabriel, not necessarily because of like anything they did or didn't do. It's just kind of my personal style of music. I don't hate proggy Genesis. In fact, was it Selling England by the Pound is a really good album. I also don't hate accessible poppy Genesis either. I love self-titled. I love Invisible Touch. In fact, here it is, Invisible Touches. Amazing album. Essentially, it's just a Phil Collins record. It kind of just has that sort of feel to it anyway. In fact, like if you listen to a song on the radio, you wouldn't know if it was Genesis or Phil Collins on his own. But either way, I'm a pretty big Phil Collins fan as well. Like I said, No Jacket Required is on my top 50 list. Ghost. This one is the new Ghost album, which I actually can't remember the name of, but it's my favorite Ghost album they've released up to this point. Has shit like Hunter's Moon, which was on Halloween Kills, which came out last year, I believe. Just like some really good shit. I've seen Ghost twice live, and once was at a music festival, and the other one they were headlining. And I really wanted to see them headline because I've heard so much good shit about their live shows, and they aren't wrong. It's all really good. This one is Ian Gillan, vocalist for Deep Purple. This one is kind of interesting. Music to Remember Her, Jackie Gleason. I didn't know, I think a lot of people wouldn't know that Jackie Gleason had a music career. But it's a pretty interesting album. The main reason I actually own it, and actually I should really like sit down and give it a listen because it might be kind of interesting, is because this is the record, and this is a regular 12-inch record. This one is cut. Which one is this actually? Oh, it's oh yeah, Golden Earring. So this is a 12-inch record. This is a 10-inch record. They both spin at the same speed, but a lot of early LP records actually came on 10-inch, but for pop. That's kind of the way that the market sort of distinguished what was kind of good music and what was accessible music, for lack of a better term. Like, in fact, Frank Sinatra was really the one who kind of broke that trend. That's why, like, if you ever see 10-inch LPs, it's just more so of kind of a novelty, more so than anything. Which I have seen a couple, but it's definitely a lot more rare. But this is a 10-inch record, came out sometime in the 1950s. It's really the only one I own. Anyway. Next up, we have... This is, the Gorillaz Plastic Beach. This is another one of my... This might actually be in my top 10 favorite albums. This one is just amazing. Has a lot of, like, guest appearances. I have listened to... what was the one with Feel Good Incorporated on it? I can't remember the name. But I have listened to that, and I agree it's a good album. This one is just better, though. I do need to listen to more Gorillaz, though. I like how it has Lou Reed, this would have been his last, like, major musical appearance, if not for a little project called Lulu, which basically just, like, completely drug him through the mud. He was getting, like, death threats, and then shortly thereafter, he ended up dying anyway, just from old age and being Lou Reed. But that was his last major contribution to music, and it's a shame because it truly is awful. I mean, obviously, I don't condone death threats to any artist, but it is truly awful. And the guest appearance on the Gorillaz is much, much better. So here we have Grease. This is the original motion picture soundtrack. Like I said, I'm a Frankie Valli fan, so that's the main reason I have it. Grand Funk Railroad, We're an American Band. This is actually a colored vinyl, released at a time when that wasn't necessarily such a common thing. I think this might have actually came out in the 1970s alongside the traditional black vinyl release. I picked it up for like $5, and honestly, I kind of hate Grand Funk Railroad, but that's pretty much the only reason I own that album, is just because it is such an oddity. Greg Kihn Band. Greg Kihn Band being some pretty good 80s pop. The Guess Who, Shakin' All Over. Next, we have American Woman. Actually, this probably would be in my top 50 list, but I don't know. There are a couple weaker parts, but for the most part, in fact, I don't know. This might be like an unofficial 51, maybe. Because, like, it does have, like, it has so many good songs. It has Title Track, No Sugar Tonight. It has some obscure stuff, too. Like, Talisman is a really nice kind of trippy acoustic ballad. When Friends Fall Out, actually a relative hard rocker. As far as the album is concerned, as hard as the album is willing to go. And all in all, it's just a really fun record. My copy is not in the best shape, but it plays fine, I guess. The Guess Who, Share the Land, another good album. I'm a pretty big fan of the Guess Who. Greta Van Fleet. This one is From the Fires. Greta Van Fleet, man. They have definitely had a career, haven't they? I I want to like Greta Van Fleet more than I do. I mean, the songs are fun, vocals. I mean, if we must address the elephant in the room, very Led Zeppelin inspired. I would say it's again just sort of like the sort of shallow everything old is new again thing, and that's kind of an issue I had with like Stranger Things as well, uh, which is why it kind of like turned me off of that show. But I don't know. I like Greta Van Fleet. I'm not exactly sure I love what they represent. Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction. Speaking of bands, Guns N' Roses is another kind of like guilty pleasure for me. I don't love Guns N' Roses. I will sit here and acknowledge all of their problems. That said, they do still have some pretty decent songs, like Mr. Brownstone, Night Train. I used to love her. Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 have some really nice moments, including In the Garden, which features Alice Cooper, and a really good feature as well. Um, yeah, I want to hate Guns N' Roses as much as everybody else, but I can't just. I don't have it in me. I don't like Guns N' Roses, but I kind of like them, if that makes sense. And speaking of which, there's GNR Lies, which is an EP, a 12-inch EP. Let's quick check to see if we have any comments. No, we do not. Makes sense. I've been doing a lot of streaming lately. This will not be the usual. So let's go down now to the H's. Here we have DOA by Sammy Hagar. Or, I'm sorry, no, it's VOA by Sammy Hagar. Good rock album there. Not a fan of Van Hagar, but I like some of his solo stuff. Halford, Resurrection. I was just talking about that earlier with Fight. But Resurrection is an amazing album. Actually, so at my best friend's wedding, he's like a huge music nerd. And we decided, like, at the wedding, what he wanted to do was a jam session. So we did a couple of songs, and Silent Screams by Halford was on that playlist. So I got to sing some Halford. I did vocals, he did guitar. The bassist, unfortunately, got COVID around that time. And the drummer was there as well. It was a mutual friend, actually, of the bassist. Hailstorm. This one is fun. First of all, I don't like Hailstorm. Let me make that perfectly clear. Which sucks because I'm surrounded by people who idolize Hailstorm and Lizzie Hale. But I saw them actually at the same rock festival I saw Ghost at. And I bought this record, and I got them to sign it because Lizzie Hale is actually kind of a local celebrity. She grew up in Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania, where I'm from. And in fact, I have multiple people who claim that they have had personal experience with Lizzie Hale in one way or another. Because she was in music at a very young age, and supposedly at the one mall, my brother and sister made like a Blink and You Miss a cameo in one of her first music videos. I don't know what the name of the song is or anything beyond that, so I can't confirm that to be true, but supposedly it happened. And also there's like people who like claim that Lizzie Hale babysat them. I don't know if that's true. I don't have anything hardcore to back that up. But if true, that would all be very amazing. Richard Harris, MacArthur Park. I actually only so I'm not I mentioned this actually in an older stream that I did like earlier this week. I'm not a Potterhead, so I had no idea that Richard Harris played Dumbledore. But when I found that out, it did utterly just blow my mind because I know him from MacArthur Park, and unfortunately now he's dead. George Harrison. I don't remember the name of this album, but it's a pretty good one. Extra Texture. Unfortunately, that album cover is kind of messed up, but that's what it's supposed to be. And finally, this one. George Harrison. I don't remember the name of this one either, but it is like one of my favorite Harrison. Besides All Things Must Pass, this is my favorite Harrison record. I Got My Mind Set on You, which is a cover, but, well, kind of a cover, kind of a reworking. I'm not entire. My understanding is George Harrison might have been a bit dubious in how he gave credit. A lot of good shit on this album. Devil's Radio was a good song off of that one as well. Here we have Heart, self-titled. This has a lot of good songs on there. This one is Heart. I think the name of the album is actually called Barracuda. I'm not 100% sure, but that's definitely the most popular song off of it. Magazine. I probably should listen to some of these Heart albums, because there might be some I wouldn't mind getting rid of. This one is Dog and Butterfly. Straight On For You is the most popular song, but this entire album, all in all, is really nice. The title track itself is really well written. Babe Lestrange. I haven't really listened to that one a whole lot, but that was kind of at Heart's maybe less commercial period. And at arguably their most commercial period, we have... Actually, this one's self-titled. What was the other one called? That one might have been called just Dreamboat Annie, I think? That's what I think. But, yeah, I really like this album. As much as it might surprise you, I understand I have like a penchant for kind of coming off as a bit pretentious. I like some kind of dumb corporate rock sometimes and corporate pop. And Heart is like I think if you can do something memorable, whether you do it in one word or you do it in 1,000, as long as you make your mark and you've gotten to a point where a whole lot of people really like your music, you've succeeded in what you set out to do, ultimately. Heart. This one is the name of the album I Alone? I don't actually remember the names of a lot of these albums, and it's kind of a pain to check because of my poor vision. This one is, which one is... Oh, yeah. Heaven 17. This is a British new wave pop band. Really good. Very synthesizer heavy, though. So, if you don't have a high tolerance for that, I'd recommend skipping. But if you really like synth pop, like I do, give it a shot. Heavy Metal, the soundtrack. This is fucking amazing. I own Heavy Metal on Blu-ray. I actually had an opportunity to buy this and the sequel on VHS and turned it down for I have no idea what reason. But I saw it on eBay and they were both at a good price. So, I don't know. I might have to do another search for that. I don't collect a lot of VHS. I used to, but sometimes there's just things that you have to have. Like, I have a sealed copy of Spinal Tap up in my room. on VHS. I don't think it's like it's not like an original VHS like release or anything like that, but I think it is like it's like a special edition they released sometime in the 2000s. It's not rare or anything. I didn't pay a whole lot for it, but it's just kind of a cool thing to have as sort of a decoration piece. Are You Experienced? The Jimi Hendrix Experience. Need I say more? Jimi Hendrix is absolute boss. And same with this album, Access, Bold as Love. Axis. Electric Ladyland. Probably my favorite Hendrix album, but really they're all pretty good. This one is Hendrix. Is this? I think this one is Machine Gun. It's like a live album. Really good one. Here we have. Oh, I actually don't remember what this one is called, but it has some good shit on it. It has Angel, which is my favorite song off this album. Room Full of Mirrors is on here. Belly Button Window. A lot of really good shit off that album. And then here's a newer album. I got this one for Christmas, I think, but it's a really nice live album at the Miami Pop Festival. Herman's Hermits on tour, not actually a live album, despite what appearances might say. This one is just a regular Herman's Hermits album, but a very good one. And actually, I think this one is supposed to come first. It's like their first one. Herman's Hermits, including Mrs. Brown, You've Got a Lovely Daughter. There's a bunch of good shit on here. I think Henry VIII might be on here. I'm Into Something Good. Sea Cruise, Mother-in-Law, Dandy. A lot of the songs on there are covers, but I didn't know that first when I was listening to it, and as a result, I'm a bit partial to those versions. But yeah, Herman's Hermits, basically the Beatles before the Beatles. Herman's Hermits, the best of Herman's Hermits. And then Herman's Hermits, The Greatest Hits, Volume 2. This is... Oh, what is this one? Actually, I need to look. Oh, The Hollies, yes. The Hollies' Distant Light has Long Cool Woman. What's the name of the one song? What a Life I've Lived, maybe? Yeah, I mean, Hollies, after Graham Nash, were definitely an interesting band. I would argue they were at their commercial peak at that point, but there are obviously purists who prefer it with Graham Nash. And honestly, I'm glad that we live in the universe we do where, you know, Graham Nash and Graham Nash went on to do Crosby, Stills, Nash, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young as well. And, you know, the Hollies went off, did their own thing, and produced a whole lot of other really good songs. But, yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of the Hollies. The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. I actually hadn't listened to it, but my friend pointed out that it was on vinyl. And I don't know. I don't think I like it as much as I do like her stuff with the Fugees, but it's Lauryn Hill. And it would unfortunately be really the only, as of now, like studio album that Lauryn Hill did on her own. There was Lauryn Hill Unplugged. Check out the Todd in the Shadows video on that. It's honestly kind of depressing. This one, actually the Lauryn Hill should have been earlier, but this one is the Greatest Hits of the Hollies. This is actually a UK import. As evidenced by the very Flimsy Sleeve. I think it's UK. It might, maybe it's European to some degree, and it's on Parlophone. But I believe this compilation was only released in Europe. Let me actually put the Hollies, or Lauryn Hill before the Hollies. I do like to keep these in order, and especially when you get a big collection like I do, it's imperative that it's like exact. Or at least pretty much close to exact. The Buddy Holly story, Buddy Holly greatest hits. Yeah, as you can tell, there's definitely a lot of like, you know, like 50s crooners. I kind of have sort of a fondness for, like I said, like Frank Sinatra, but also like Buddy Holly, Del Shannon, Roy Orbison. I would all put those in the same category. The Honey Drippers, this is another band featuring Jimmy Page, also Robert Plant, both from Led Zeppelin. Hooters, this one includes songs like All You Zombies, Day by Day, And We Danced. Again, pretty standard pop album, but a really nice one. The name of the album is, I think, Nervous Night. That's it. This one is Ian Hunter with one of my favorite titles for any album, You're Never Alone with a Schizophrenic. Here we have Billy Idol. I think this one is just self-titled, or it's just titled Idol. Good album. This is another one, Billy Idol. This one is, I think this one is the one with White Wedding. Here we have Iron Maiden. All right. Oh, hey, Chad. How are you? Hold on a second. If you're asking why I'm not reading comments, it's because I don't have them on hand. Yeah, hello. Hang on. Since you weren't here before, Billy Idol. Oh, Billy Idol is good. Okay, never mind. Sorry, again, if I'm looking this way, it's because I actually have this airplaying to my TV. And that's how I'm reading the comments this time around, because my iPad is a little bit further away from arm's length distance because I just joined. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I'm just, like, letting you know. Anyway, oh no, that's Killers. Where's the other Iron Maiden? Okay, I think I found it. Here it is. Iron Maiden. This one, controversial opinion. Paul Di'Anno is better than Bruce Dickinson. Objectively, maybe not. But my two favorite Iron Maiden albums both do not feature Bruce Dickinson. Bruce Dickinson has been a part of some really good music. Don't get me wrong. Number of the Beast, for example. Fear of the Dark, Power Slave. But I really like this style. It's not as... Bruce Dickinson added the power metal into Iron Maiden. Paul Di'Anno had a sort of like punk almost sound to it. It's like punk, but with Sam Harris kind of adding sort of like a neoclassical edge to it. And it's a pretty unique blend, kind of like combining punk and like punk, new wave of British heavy metal, and kind of neoclassical playing. Definitely not an album to sleep off of. Self-titled Iron Maiden has some amazing shit. It's, again, this one is another one that's in my top 50. I think it might be in my top 10s or 20s, something like that. But it's all the same. Really, really good. Prowler, Remember Tomorrow, Transylvania, Phantom of the Opera, title track Iron Maiden, Charlotte the Harlot. But yeah, anyway. Killers, another really good album. I don't like this one maybe quite as much, cause like towards the end of the album it starts to slip a little bit, but this one still has some amazing shit. Like Wrathchild, one of the best. Murders in the Rue Morgue, really good shit. In fact, there was a song only released as a single, I believe, or might have been released as like part of like some special editions of Killers. It's called Twilight Zone. Iron Maiden Twilight Zone. Check that out. It really shows the unrecognized talent of Paul Di'Anno vocally. It kind of shows that he really sort of can hit some of the high notes that Dickinson could. Speaking of Dickinson, here is Number of the Beast. I've heard kind of mixed things. People saying this album still holds up. People saying it's overrated. This album is fantastic. Is it as good, again, as, like, Paul Di'Anno era Maiden? No, but, again, it has... Let me look at it. Invaders... Run to the Hills is a good song. 22 Acacia Avenue, really good one. Actually, I'm now realizing the back cover of this one is printed upside. No, it's not. Yeah, 22 Acacia Avenue. Hallowed Be Thy Name is obviously a perma-classic. But we have Powerslave as well. I don't have Peace of Mind. That album I actually would argue is a little bit overrated. I just don't like it as much as Number of the Beast or Powerslave. But it's still a decent album. If I ever see it for a decent price, I'll pick it up. This one is actually a really good price. I think I got it like maybe $5 just because like this guy had it and he didn't test it and he knew me well, so he let me get it for $5. But this might be my favorite Dickinson era album. It has like some really good shit. It has what was it? It has well, title track. It has Ryan of the Ancient Mariner. It has Aces High, 2 Minutes to Midnight. Really good riff on that one. And then here we have Live After Death. Fantastic. I mean, it may not be like the best ever live performance, but it's still pretty good. Nice, yeah. Let me quick look to see if you said anything I missed. Oh, okay, no you didn't. Okay. All right, so let's get into the J's. We have, starting off with Jackson 5, ABC. What is this? This one is Jackson's... I actually don't remember what album this is, but it has the song Can You Feel It, which basically the Jacksons kind of getting into the more disco era. And then we have some of the individual Jacksons. This is Joe Jackson, I'm the Man, and my personal favorite Joe Jackson record, night and day. Who do you like better, MJ or Prince? Prince, I would say. Actually, I'm going to get into another one of my patented controversial takes. I don't like the Thriller album. In fact, I'm now just realizing I actually don't own it anymore. I used to, but I sold it. I don't like the Thriller album. I know it's like one of the most popular albums ever made, best-selling albums ever made. I don't like Thriller. Beat It is good, but only because of the Eddie Van Halen solo. Billie Jean, meh. Thriller, meh. PYT, okay. That fucking terrible Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson ballad. That I think Paul McCartney, ultimate controversial opinion, I think Paul McCartney did the whole ballad thing a lot better with Stevie Wonder doing Ebony and Ivory. Yeah, you could make a lot of arguments about how that song hasn't really aged well for, artistic reasons and also just sort of socio-political reasons. I don't like the Thriller album. Prince, I would say, generally speaking, was just a more talented musician. In fact, I remember when Prince died, hearing about how supposedly he had about 40 years worth of backlog that he was just sitting on. So if they were to release another album, they could probably fill about 40 years worth of content. I haven't really seen much of Prince post-mortem, so I don't know if they've really started on any of that, but they could. This album, however, I do really like. The Bad Album. And contrary to its name, this one I think is much better than Thriller. Dirty Diana, just amazing stripper song. Smooth Criminal, good one. I always kind of flip-flopped on whether I preferred that or the Alien Ant Farm version of Smooth Criminal, but I think generally these days I prefer the Michael Jackson one. What is there? This title track, Bad, but both albums I think pale in comparison to the unsung legend, Dangerous. And both Bad and Dangerous I have as picture discs. This one being a 2-album set, which is rare to see for picture discs. Usually they will, with picture discs, they'll try and like condense it all down into one album or do like a highlights thing. Like that's what they did originally with Iron Maiden, Live After Death, the picture disc for that one. But yeah. Dangerous is my favorite album. Jam. Jam, by the way, if you ever want to kind of get an idea of how much influence Michael Jackson really had for the Sonic the Hedgehog games, specifically Sonic 3, listen to the song Jam, and you'll definitely hear a lot of the Sonic 3 music in that song, and really all throughout this album. Keep It in the Closet. This was definitely... This album, the reason, honestly, that people don't talk about this in the same sentence as Thriller and Bad is just because of the timing. It came out at a time when Michael Jackson was really getting thrown through the coals. There was that infamous sexual allegation thing. He was going through court trials. There was just a spotlight thrust on him 24/7, like sort of just exposing all the crazy shit he was going through and doing. I could go on, and I might, if you want me to, but I think it's all bullshit. I don't think Michael Jackson did anything wrong. I don't think that... I think that the allegations are BS, and I think that ultimately it just drove this person, that along with just a terrible upbringing and constant media attention, it drove him to madness, essentially. And You know, you could argue kind of drove him to death, essentially. I mean, he wasn't in the best mental state. He was taking cocktail of drugs he probably shouldn't have, and unfortunately died way too young. Mick Jagger. Tommy James and the Shondells. This is Hanky Panky. This is a really good album. I'm a huge fan of Tommy James and the Shondells. But a better album, Crimson and Clover. This one is a masterpiece, I think. Top 50 albums, maybe not, but definitely one worth listening to if you like kind of British psychedelic pop from that era. The Beatles, the Stones, the Kinks, bands like that. And this one is just the greatest hits of Tommy James and the Shondells. James Gang Rides Again. That one's actually upside down. Yeah, there we go. James Gang Rides Again. This one is, I think, German pressing, if I remember right. It's on the EMI label, and yeah, it is EMI, and like a lot of European pressings, it comes in a very flimsy, thin cardboard album cover. Tom Jones, another one of those crooners I really like. And Tom Jones, I think, might be between him and Bennett. What's his name? Tom Bennett? I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's those two who are Tony Bennett. Between those two, they're like the last surviving crooners, I think. Janis Joplin, Greatest Hits. The Worst of Jefferson Airplane. I like that title. Jefferson Starship. This is the one with Jane on it. I mean, you can say that you don't like Jefferson Starship. You're lying to me, you're lying to yourself, and you're lying to God. So cut that shit out. Here's a band you can hate. Journey. I only have this one album. I used to have a couple others, but I got rid of them. Overture. This is the only good Journey album since Steve Perry took over. So for those who don't know about Journey, you know Journey. You know, Don't Stop Believing, Lovin' Touchin' Squeezin', Wheel in the Sky, Separate Ways, Faithfully. All of those like mega hits. They did not start out that way at all. They actually started out as an offshoot of Santana. And in fact, if you listen to the very first couple of Journey albums, they're mostly kind of like atmospheric instrumental prog. Neil Shannon, I want to say his name was, guitarist of Journey. He actually left Santana to start Journey. And basically, I guess he realized he needed the money, so he needed to make his image more mainstream. Got Steve Perry, and I mean, financially, it worked out for them. I just do not like Journey at all. And I think that a lot of people who claim to like Journey are people who are kind of just nostalgia blind. And that goes for people who grew up when Journey were at their peak popularity in the 1980s, and that also applies to younger people who, you know, grew up with Journey because either their parents listened to it, or it was on Glee, or it was the soundtrack of some rom-com or something like that. I think if you really take a look at Journey, they did not do anything all that spectacular. It was just kind of such a time and place kind of thing. I've gotten into a lot of arguments, but basically I just really do not like Journey at all. My dad actually recently saw them live, and he said they're pretty good. It's with the new vocalist. I can't remember his name, but the Filipino guy. Um, and I imagine they probably put on a good show. I mean, their sound is definitely tailor made for an arena rock sound, but um, yeah, I have heard like some of the newer Journey is a bit heavier though, so maybe I need to give that a shot. Jethro Tull, Benefit. I have a lot of Jethro Tull. I'm a fan. Aqualung. This is my favorite Tull album. Actually, Dyer was in the last stream. If you didn't catch that, which if you didn't, what are you doing watching the streams out of order? He mentioned that he actually met Ian Anderson, who's the frontman for Jethro Tull, and I guess he called Dyer a blundering idiot, which, I mean, I'm not necessarily one to judge, but he's not wrong. Anyway, Thick as a Brick. This is another really good one. It's actually a double side long epic, essentially. So Thick as a Brick Part 1, and then the other side is Thick as a Brick Part 2. I really like this album. I like the kind of like newspaper. I used to have, this is like a later pressing, but the older one used to like kind of flip out, and it was just like an elongated album cover. Had an entire, like all of this is stuff you can read. There's like tons of just like funny bits and Easter eggs and little nods. It's just so clever. Speaking of clever, A Passion Play, another really good album. Also another double-sided epic album. War Child. I'm trying to see. Okay, I do have that in frame. This is Songs from the Wood. Definitely a softer album, but still very good. It has some amazing stuff on it. And finally, or not finally, I still have a couple more, I think. Jethro Tull Live quickly became one of my favorite live albums. Just some of the mid-song banter, especially. Ian Anderson is just a funny dude. And just a really cool guy. I like him. Oh, that is the last of my Tull. I thought I had one other. No, oh no, I think that might be one that my friend has, because he's also a huge Tull fan. Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, I've actually seen them twice in concert. Once at that music festival that I saw, Hailstorm and Ghost. The other time, actually opening for Styx alongside Tesla. And this is a picture disc featuring some, I believe, just outtakes from Joan Jett and the Blackhearts, as well as the Runaways. Billy Joel. This one is Street Life Serenade. My favorite Billy Joel album, and one of my favorite albums of all time, The Stranger. Just a very solidly put together pop album. 52nd Street, another really good pop album. Not as good as The Stranger, in my opinion, obviously. This one might do a better job of competing, though. The Nylon Curtain. This one, it has Allentown, which, again, being from central Pennsylvania, I have to respect Allentown. Pressure, Goodbye to Saigon. Laura, a lot of really good stuff. Some stuff that I think maybe a little bit unfairly obscure as compared to other Joel standards. Billy Joel, An Innocent Man. And finally, Billy Joel's Stormfront. This one has like We Didn't Start the Fire, And the one song named after a virtual assistant that we will not name because she is still active and can hear everything we're saying. Straight from Billy Joel, we have Elton John, who I think is extremely comparable to Billy Joel. Tumbleweed Connection. I prefer Billy Joel by far to Elton John, but I enjoy them both to an extent. Blue Skies, Elton John. I can't remember actually. This might actually be their first album. And then we have Elton John's self-titled. That has the Border song as well as Your Song. It's a little bit funny. Madman Across the Water has Daniel and Tiny Dancer, the big hits off of that one. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, fantastic double album. One I actually need to like give a proper listen to one of these days, but I've heard that's kind of like the best Elton John record. Caribou. Now this one is my personal favorite, Captain Fantastic. That has Someone Saved My Life Tonight, which is my personal favorite Elton John song. Definitely very autobiographical of Elton John's mental state at the time. He was infamously very suicidal around that point specifically, going through a lot of like substance abuse problems. Elton John, a single man, Elton John. Here we kind of get into like when the drugs really started to like take in, and a lot of the commercial appeal started to fade a bit. Elton John, this one is widely considered to be one of the worst albums just of all time. Victim of Love. It opens with like a 5-minute, actually longer than that, I think like 10-minute long disco cover of Johnny B. Good. I will say it's not the worst thing ever. I do sometimes have a soft spot for just sort of like absolute dumpster fire albums, like there's that one. Kilroy Was Here by Styx is another just a kind of decent dumpster fire album. I think it's just because like the internet likes to hype things up to be worse than they are, because everything when you're writing the articles of like, you won't believe these top 10 epic music fails, everything has to be the best or the worst, and there is no in between. So I think as a result of that, it kind of pushes people like me with a rational mind who doesn't buy into the clickbait to be like, it's not good, but it could have been worse. This is Elton John. I think this is Live with the London Symphony Orchestra. Might be wrong. But pretty good live album. And then Judas Priest. Okay, now we're talking. This one is... why am I forgetting the name of this album? Sad Wings of Destiny. That's it. Amazing album. I think I have all of the Judas Priest except for a couple. I'll let you know when I don't have it. I don't have Rock'n'Rolla, which was actually the first Priest album. Sin After Sin. I just had an argument actually with my one friend. This album has some really good songs. I would not consider it to be a good album. I think there's too many like filler tracks, and there's too many like just softer portions. They hadn't quite like shaken off the proggier side of like Sad Wings and Rock'n'Rolla. This one though, this is one of my favorite albums. It's in my top 50. It's Stained Class. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen before, when I keep referencing my top 50 albums, I'm referencing a list that I did over on TikTok. So, I actually forgot to put the link to that in the first vinyl video, but I will do that now after this stream. Oh, Domo Morigato, Mr. Robot. Oh God, I missed a lot of your comments. I am so sorry. Let me quick read some of that. Paul McCartney sung with Michael. Paul McCartney and Michael Jackson were actually really good friends until essentially Paul McCartney bought all of, or Michael Jackson rather, bought all of the Beatles' back catalog, and they've kind of had like some not very good blood ever since. Prince was called the artist, like the artist formerly known as Prince. Actually, he was known by I think some sort of Arabic uh, like symbol that I can't remember actually what it is, but it's like the most pretentious shit ever. I like the newspaper design. Up thick as a brick, yeah. And yeah, Domo Arigato. But yeah, like I said, I have to kind of look over and I have to kind of get lucky and catch one of your comments. So for this one, if I'm not as good at like responding to your comments, keep sending them, but it might take me a little while to really respond to them. We have Unleashed in the East, Judas Priest live album, fantastic record. Another one of my favorite live albums. Hellbent for Leather, good, not great, has some weaker moments. British Steel, yeah, I mean it has like shit like United and You Don't Have to Be Old to Be Wise, and it's a good album, it's not great. This one is kind of interesting. This one is, I believe... This one is Colorado, June 25th, 1980. This, I believe, would have been off of the British Steel Tour. It's just a bootleg Priest concert live. And then after that, we have Point of Entry. Really good album. If you ever need an album to listen to while driving in a car, definitely one to check out. By the way, I forgot to ask, did you end up getting the Switch, Chad? Now that you're in chat, you can update us on that. Did it go through? Were you able to get the Switch? If not, you know, best of luck to you going forward. But yeah, Judas Priest, Screaming for Vengeance. Classic. Defenders of the Faith, another classic. Maybe not quite as good as Screaming for Vengeance, but it definitely holds its own. Turbo Lover. Maybe... No, I'm not going to say it's the weakest Judas Priest album. There's two specifically, both of which I don't actually... Three of which I would actually say... Maybe four of which, actually. I would say I have all of the Priest albums that I genuinely like. No, I get the... yes, I got the Switch yesterday. Oh, good. Congratulations. I was going to say if you wanted to exchange friend codes. You know what, actually? I'm actually planning on doing sort of like an impromptu video on... like what's on my Switch, maybe. Maybe I might show my friend code there. I don't know. I don't know. If you want to post your friend code in the chat, no guarantee I'll be able to catch it. Or maybe I can just screenshot it and look for it later. But if you want to post your friend code in the chat, feel free. Turbo, Judas Priest. I made a short video. Okay, cool. I will, you know what? I should actually subscribe to your channel. I don't think I've ever actually checked it out. Fun fact, I actually don't entirely remember how we met. I'm thinking it was through GMC's stream, right? Because like you don't go to like Eugene or anybody like that. Okay, I'll post my friend code. Okay. I didn't know if you had the friend code in that video or not. In that case, yeah, when you GMC or Lorenzo. Well, I don't really go to Lorenzo's streams, but it must have been GMC. No idea how he's been doing. He had me. I guess he has me on block or something. Like I don't know. I'm not gonna perpetuate shit like that. This one is actually a really cool one. Relatively uncommon. This one is I just forgot the name of the album. It is it Jawbreaker, I think? Yeah, I think it's yeah, Jawbreaker, I think it is. Or no, Jawbreaker was off Defenders of Faith. I don't remember the name of this album, but it's one of the more rare ones. So this was actually when Judas Priest. Okay, there's your friend code. I'm gonna actually take a screenshot now on my iPad. So that I can, yeah, save that. Okay. I didn't know GMC block. I don't know if he did. He just, I don't know. I don't want to focus on shit like that. I probably shouldn't have even mentioned it, but yeah. Anyway, this one, it's a pretty good album, but sadly it's just not in print anymore. I'm sorry, what did you say? TYMN. Thank you very much for being my friend. Okay, thank you. But yeah. I mean, it is on the album. It's just like a really weird kind of fucking font. Actually, a fun fact about this album, though, is it's meant to be like more zoomed out, and that's kind of why like the album cover itself is just so blurry. I don't remember why they did that. I think there might have been something controversial about it. But oh, Jugulator! Now I got it. Jugulator. This is one after Rob Halford left. He was doing Fight. He was doing Halford. They brought in a guy named Tim Ripper Owens, who is a metal darling nowadays. He was in Iced Earth for a little bit. He has his own thing now. I think with it's called KK Downing's Priest, actually, because KK Downing was ousted from the band at some point as well, and he started up a side project with Judas Priest with Tim Ripper Owens. But yeah, I don't have Ram It Down. I don't have Painkiller. Actually, that's like the one that I don't have that I would really like. But yeah, and I don't have what is it? Desolation, I want to say. I can't remember the name of the album. And then I don't have Nostradamus, which honestly I can't even listen to the full way through. It's just such a chore to listen to. That is probably my least favorite Priest album. Redeemer of Souls. Second to last Priest album released so far. And the last Priest album released so far, Firepower. I was actually in Europe when this album dropped, and I listened to it basically as soon as I could. It was just fantastic. All right, going into the K's. We have Kansas, self-titled. I think this is their first album. Next we have Point of No Return. I used to have Left Overture. I gave it to a friend. Audio Visions. Kansas is a band I want to like more than I do. I need to actually like sit down and give them a chance. Kansas. This one, I don't remember the title of this one. And it doesn't say it very clearly as far as I can tell. But yeah, Carry on My Wayward Son, Dust in the Wind, you would know those songs. This is a band called Kick Axe. I just thought I would let you know. Unfortunately, from what I remember, this album is not nearly as as amazing as the name of the band. I might need to check it out to confirm that, but I'm pretty sure. Chad, I think actually in the last stream mentioned the Killers. Here's the Killers. This is Sam's Town. You know what? I always said Sam's Town was my favorite Killers album. I think it might actually be this next one. Imploding the Mirage. This is actually the newest Killers album. It was released last year. It was basically Brendan Flowers' quarantine project. And, I just saw a comment. Let me see if I can quick read that. There it is. I don't know GMC. The Killers are cool. Hell yeah. I'll say this though, something that isn't cool. This vinyl copy. So I don't know if it's for legal reasons or what, but this version of the album is just not. It's cut. It cuts a lot of those. It cuts the interstitials out for whatever reason. My only guess is that there might have been some sort of legal mumbo jumbo where it's like, basically the interstitials are just Brendan Flowers going up to these random people who live in, I think it's Utah. I believe that's the essential theme of this album. And kind of just like interviewing them about life, like random women, men, whatever. And my guess is that maybe they didn't make it clear, like, there might have been some sort of legal reason as to, like, okay, you can legally have this on streaming and some other formats, but you can't have it on Vine, but we reserve the right to allow you to press it on vinyl. And that is why it's cut. It could also be just to like fit it, but there's plenty of room on the record, so I wouldn't know why. It's not like it's a particularly long album. But I actually ended up buying the record on cassette just so I could have the uncut version on a physical media that's analog. And I'm glad I did that, honestly, because this album, I think, was tailor-made for cassette. The Mormons didn't like it. No, they did not. Nah, I've actually been to Utah though. I know people from there. It's a really beautiful scape, and this album really evokes that feeling. And I think that's why I prefer Imploding the Mirage. Or I'm sorry, no, this isn't. Imploding the Mirage was the album before that. This one is Pressure Machine. Yeah, I do like Imploding the Mirage though. That's the one they released before Pressure Machine. I will say though that like everybody from Utah is like 20 years out of date. So I would have thought like if anything they would want exclusive vinyl rights. Like Spotify, we don't know what the hell that is. I'm in Utah. I'm not Mormon though. Yeah, not everybody in Utah is Mormon. In fact, I imagine just as people in general are more secular, I imagine people are kind of losing touch with the Mormon faith, as with a lot of others. Statistics sort of show that. But yeah, Utah is a very beautiful place. Just seeing like the Rocky Mountain and just sort of like seeing the Rocky Mountains and the landscape and the um, words escaping me. But yeah, it's a really beautiful place. I have friends there that I've known for years. In fact, the one friend I was talking about earlier who knows Lou Graham lives in Utah, who I flew down to go see and might actually fly down to see again in a couple of months because his best friend, who's also a friend of mine, is getting married and I'm invited to the wedding. But yeah, it's a very beautiful landscape. Mountains and sand are very nice. Yeah, exactly. Um, and like especially now, I keep hearing on the news about like all of the droughts and water shortages and things like that. Like, I hope they're okay. I feel like there has to be a way because like there's areas of the world that are flooded. I feel like there has to be a way to like somehow salvage that water and bring it across the coast. I feel like that has to be a thing because like if we can get fucking oil pipelines to go from the Gulf of Mexico up to Michigan, we should be able to do the exact same thing with water for those who need it. In California, in Colorado, in Nevada, in Arizona. Anyway, moving swiftly along from that depressing nonsense, here is Carole King, Tapestry. Uh, really good album. This is, I think this is like in the tail end of my top 50 actually, but it's still a really, really good album. Carole King, of course, being a very prolific songwriter for about a decade before releasing that album, so it was all building up to something, and I think that was well worth. It was well worth the build up. This is another Carole King album. This one is Rhymes and Reasons. It's put in the same category as Tapestry. I don't think it's as good. Similarly with this one, I think Tapestry is just, again, Carole King music. I think Tapestry is just like, it's an album she'd been kind of like sort of building up to for the past decade, writing music for like Herman's Hermits and the Crystals and Tina Turner and other like Phil Spector era bands of that time. It was all kind of building up to something. These, I feel like, were just sort of like, well, Tapestry turned out to be a really big hit, so I'll write some more music. And it's good, it's just not as good as Tapestry, I think. Good things come to those who wait, I think. Kingdom Come. This is essentially the 80s version of Greta Van Fleet. This is the band back in the 1980s that everybody thought was Led Zeppelin. In fact, when they first came out, a lot of people actually thought this was a Led Zeppelin reunion album. Of course, if you listen with a more trained ear, you can kind of see it's not exactly like Led Zeppelin. There's kind of like a more neoclassical vibe to it, and even the vocals, I would say, falsetto notwithstanding, aren't really that similar to Robert Plant's. But all in all, this is just a really solid album, nevertheless. And same can be said with this one, Kingdom Come. I don't remember the name of this one. I think it's called like Loudness or something like that. This has a song called Highway 6, which I highly recommend. Really good song. Kind of like progresses over a bit. But the big hit off of the of this one is the two big hits off of this one are "Living Out of Touch" and "Get It On." Both fantastic songs, in my opinion. Uh, the Kinks' greatest hits. There's a lot of Kinks. I love them. We also have this one, which I actually don't remember them. Oh, Musewell Hillbillies. I actually didn't even remember I bought this on vinyl, now that I think about it. That's what happens when you have a big collection. But this is a really good album. It has like picture book and shit on it. It's really good. This is my favorite Kinks album. It's also in my top 50. Low budget. Really good album. Catch Me Now I'm Falling is on that album. Wish I Could Fly Like Superman. Title track. There's a song that's, I'd say, very relevant today, but that's only because history kind of repeats itself. It's called "A Gallon of Gas," and it's basically just like a huge joke song about like, I wanted to buy all this really expensive stuff, but you know, just a gallon of gas is too expensive, so I'm just gonna waste my life savings on that. It's kind of like a joke song, but you know, you look at it in there in that context. Sleepwalker, great album. This one, I feel like this should actually be a little bit earlier, but this one is, or this might actually be a greatest hits. I don't remember. This one I think actually is a great. No, it's not. I do have a greatest hits though. This is a good double album though. This is the greatest hits. Right now I'm remembering. And then this one is Giving the People What They Want. The Kinks. This one is Visions. And this one is State of Confusion. And that's all of the Kinks. Now we go on to Kiss. Another band I want to hate more than I do, because I fucking hate Gene Simmons. He's a money-grubbing prick, essentially. But I don't know. I kind of like Kiss. Here's an album I don't like, Hotter Than Hell. Here's the thing. I like this album. The mix ruins it. This is, I believe, to be the worst mixed album in history. That was released by a major label. Or, I guess they weren't a major label at the time, but yeah, Casablanca Records released this, and God, it is really just unpleasant to listen to. Some of the songs are pretty decent, but they're just ruined by the terrible mix. Anything that was released on the Alive album is superior to that album, though. Dress to Kill. That features Rock and Roll All Night, which the Alive version would be their first really big hit and catapult them into superstardom. This is Destroyer by Kiss. I'm not gonna lie, I really like this album. I also really like Rock and Roll Over. Now here's the thing though, I like, and then there's, okay, no, there isn't. Is there Love Gun? Okay, no, I did get rid of Love Gun. But, here is Alive 2. I used to have Alive 1, I just didn't really care for it. Ace Frehley. This is my favorite of the Kiss solo albums that they released back in the 70s. And I think Frehley went on to have just the best solo career in general with, like, Frehley's Comet. And Kiss Unmasked. Now, I like the Kiss. I like certain 70s Kiss albums. In the 80s, I think is where they really shined. First of all, there's Creatures of the Night, which I unfortunately don't have, or I would show you. But that's one of my favorites. But also, Lick It Up by Kiss. Amazing hard rock classic. Lick It Up, Not for the Innocent, Young and Wasted, probably the best song on that album. Really good shit. And then also Animalize. Not quite as good as Lick It Up or Creatures of the Night, but still a pretty decent album. Heaven's on Fire is a decent song. Into the Fire, which came out around the same time as Dawkins' Into the Fire, which I think is a little bit of a coincidence. Speaking of local hero bands that we were talking about with Hailstorm earlier, Kix. This is a band also from Central PA. And they were definitely the biggest here. They definitely like to tour here a lot. My favorite album, I unfortunately don't own on vinyl, but I do have on cassette. It's Blow My Fuse. That has like Don't Close Your Eyes, Red Light, Green Light, TNT. First album, biggest hit off of that one was The Itch. Let me look at the comments. I'm not big into Kiss, yeah. And just nice. Yeah. But yeah, they're pretty big locally. And I used to have Cool Kids, but I got rid of that one. Get the Knack. The Knack, of course, famous for My Sharona. And I believe, yeah, those are all of the Ks. So let's get into the Ls. We have Led Zeppelin. Of course, what's better than Led Zeppelin? Led Zeppelin 2. Both of these are 180 gram reissues. I don't own the original copies. This is an original pressing, though. This is Led Zeppelin 3. And in fact, it has the, it actually has like a die cut wheel. So if you move it like this, you see there, you see it spins. Or you could do it like that, and that's probably going to show up a little bit better on camera. But yeah, another very innovative album cover from a time when like a short period of time when a lot of album covers got really ambitious. Like I said, there was the Alice Cooper Schools Out one that like transformed into like a cardboard school desk. There was Led Zeppelin 3. There was Look at Yourself by Uriah Heep. I think Roberta Flack album that like had like kind of the wings that opened. That came out around that same time as well. Just this really short period of time. Oh, and Sticky Fingers. How can I forget about that by the Rolling Stones? Just this really short and ultra specific period of time where album covers tried to be super ambitious. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. As a result, some of them haven't exactly withstood the test of time because, you know, the more ambitious something becomes, the more likely stuff is to break. Led Zeppelin 4, obviously Stairway to Heaven is on that, and Black Dog, and a lot of good shit. My favorite track on there, though, is When the Levee Breaks. Really good drumming on that track. We have Houses of the Holy. My two favorite Zeppelin tracks on here, I would say, are... Well, not on here, but my two favorite Zeppelin tracks. One is on this album. It's No Quarter. I really like that kind of like really sort of unique guitar tone that they use, which I think is, if I remember right, I think it's just like a clean guitar tone that they sort of fed through a Sonobox, sort of like what Peter Frampton did, but sort of different. We also have Physical Graffiti. I would say sort of like their attempt at a Sgt. Pepper album, even if it didn't exactly succeed in that same way, I would argue. The song remains the same. The soundtrack album, it's a live. It's various excerpts from concerts from around 1974, 1975, I think. Uh, Presence. This has my absolute favorite Zeppelin song on it, Achilles' Last Stand. It's about 10 minutes, about the same length, if not a little bit longer than Stairway to Heaven. But it's just chock full of like every single piece of like Led Zeppelin was firing on all four cylinders, and I think puts in the best performance of their careers. Robert Plant doesn't hit the high notes that he does on the first few albums, but still puts in a really good effort. Jimmy Page, some really good shredding. John Bonham, best drum performance of his lifetime. John Paul Jones, really nice kind of galloping bass. It's a really good song. I highly recommend, if not that full album, check out the song Achilles' Last Stand. But Presence in general is just a really good album. I think that one's the one I decided to put on my 50 favorite albums. In Through the Outdoor, of course, with the paper sleeve. And finally, Coda, which was released post-mortem after John Bonham unfortunately died. And it's essentially just a bunch of like studio outtakes and rarities and things like that. It's a pretty good compilation, but it's debatable whether it's considered to be an official Led Zeppelin album or not. So I do have, as you can see, all of the Led Zeppelin albums. I also own this. This isn't actually not a record. I just keep it with the records just because it's so big. But it's actually a cassette compilation. These first two cassettes are just like a collection of like greatest hits from Led Zeppelin. And this third one with the case that's actually kind of broken a bit, that's an interview, I believe, with Jimmy Page, the guitarist of Led Zeppelin. So that one I just think is pretty neat to have. I lost. Okay, right. Let me look and see if there's any comments. Nice, cool. Do you have a Sony Walkman? No, but I used to. Actually, when I was a little kid, I'm pretty sure it was manufactured by Sony, but it was rebadged under Play School, and it was like a Sony Walkman, but really kidified. If you go online, you can probably find it. It has like it's like white and like really kidified, like bright colors. That was my first cassette player. Right now I have shit. Is it actually? I actually need to check. I can't remember if it's a Sony. I don't think it's a Sony. It is an Onkyo twin cassette deck. I actually featured that earlier on in my last video, but I couldn't remember what the brand was. It's an Onkyo. Onkyo put out some really good stuff back in the day. I don't think they're still around, or at least not in their current form. This is another one of my favorite albums. This one is Wake Up with John Legend and the Roots. They kind of collaborated. That's the word I was looking for. Collaborated on this album. Also features a lot of other guest vocals, but most notably Common is on this album. And it's just a really nice kind of like gospel soul record. You know, John Legend, I think a lot of people know him best for, All of Me. This really kind of showcases his real sort of musical virtuoso talent. I hesitate to say virtuoso because I'm sure he had to work really hard and that's sort of like what that implies is that he didn't, but he's just an amazing musician. And definitely, since a lot of people nowadays probably know him for All of Me, I think that's, not necessarily the best introduction to John Legend. The Plastic Ono Band. This might actually get the gold trophy for worst live album ever made. Let me tell you about this. All right. So, essentially, my understanding is this was rushed. Like, he put this album together, quick mastered it, and rushed it out to beat any bootleggers who were going to release it on vinyl and, like, some sort of attached to some really small indie label. But it's rough. There's like Twist and Shout. There is Money. All of these just like really kind of drunk impromptu old like Beatles classics and a couple of the early John Lennon ones. And then you get into Give Peace a Chance, where he just forgets half the vocals, half the lyrics, and just kind of mumbles his way through it. Like, if you didn't know the words, I wouldn't have instructed the band to play it if you weren't like that confident with the song. But it gets worse. Entire second side of this album is dedicated to Yoko Ono. Yoko Ono sings the entire second half of this album. Front to back, it's about 20 minutes long. So 20 minutes straight, I just want to reiterate, 20 minutes straight of Yoko Ono. Look, I don't care how much you like your wife. At some point, you gotta be like, okay, maybe we shouldn't torture the audience. Because, like, Yoko Ono is not a good vocalist. I'm sure, I mean, part of it might be, like, Japanese traditional, like, styling, and maybe in reality, she's actually a decent vocalist. I don't care. It still sucks. And I'm just baffled by the fact that that exists. Imagine, John Lennon. Much better album. Mainly because it has 100% less Yoko Ono. Mind Games. This one also I don't think has Yoko Ono. Oh no, this one's Mind Games. Which one? Let's see, that was Imagine. Oh, I'm sorry. No, never mind. I'm sorry. This is the Plastic Ono Band. This one, I don't think that, despite the name, I don't think this one actually has Yoko in it. And then the other one is Imagine. But Plastic Ono Band, I put in my top 50. It's been one of my favorite John Lennon albums. Yeah, Imagine. This one is Mind Games. And then this one is John Lennon live in New York City. I think this was around 1974, 1975. I didn't even know this album was released. It's not available. It's not in print anymore, but it was released on Apple Records, I believe. The Beatles' official label. Shaved Fish, Greatest Hits compilation. Features a lot of things that were only ever released as singles. John Lennon, Rock and Roll. These are all pretty decent, I would say. Covers of like old 50s rock tunes like Peggy Sue, Stand By Me. I mean, technically that was 60s, but Bring It On Home to Me. Ain't That a Shame. This one has its fair share of Yoko Ono. It is Double Fantasy. That said, the rest of the album is kind of so good that it makes up for the, including of Yoko. And this one, Milk and Honey, this was the album that was released posthumously after John Lennon was shot. Gordon Lightfoot, this is Sundown. Gordo's Gold, this is a Greatest Hits compilation, double LP. And Gordon Lightfoot, Uh, Summertime Dream. This features my favorite Gordon Lightfoot song, the record, the Edmund Fitzgerald. If you don't know who Gordon Lightfoot is, he's essentially he's known as the Canadian Bob Dylan. I say more so as a result of his songwriting, not his voice. I think he has a much better voice than Bob Dylan, but Dylan definitely. There's a reason Dylan sounds like that, and essentially it's just some like 4D trolling. But I could get into that another time. The Best of Little Richard, Little River Band. I think this is just self-titled. This has the song Lonesome Loser on it. Loudness. This is a Japanese metal band from the 80s that's really good. It's Japanese, but it's all in English. This is a good album, though. Definitely, I think the biggest Japanese band, at least in metal, to cross over to the US. This one is Loverboy. Self-titled, yeah. I couldn't remember if it was that or Keep It Up. But it's an alright album. I used to have, a long time ago, some more Loverboy albums. I got rid of them, and honestly, I've kind of been regretting it. Second Helping, Leonard Skinner. I wish I had pronounced Leonard Skinner. I actually have that one on 8-track. I might do, maybe not like a live, but I might do a video of me showing off my 8-track tapes. One for the Road by Leonard Skinner, live album. And finally, Street Survivors. There are famously two different variations of this cover. This is the less rare version that's just a band photo. The original version actually had them with like torches and Molotov cocktails and flames. And they quickly pulled that album cover and replaced it with this one because soon after that album was released, Ronnie Van Zant and I think a couple other members of the band tragically died in a plane crash. So I believe the label thought it might have been in poor taste to have an album that's just a whole bunch of flames. But I have seen the flame cover. I never bothered to pick it up, but if you do ever see it and you're a vinyl collector, check it out. It's pretty interesting. I didn't know there were cassette players for kids. Yeah, there was everything for kids. Oof, I don't know what that's responding to. I assume that's responding to the Yoko Ono thing. Did you see the clip I sent? I did not! Shit, I forgot to do that. See, the problem with, like, this is, like, it's kind of hard to go back to links and shit in the replay, and I can't really look at it now, but I'll have to... I don't remember what it was about. I haven't heard of Loudness. That's sad to hear. I think... Hang on. It, for whatever reason, it, like, makes the comments disappear, and I don't like that. That's out here. Patsy Cline. Here's the thing, I didn't know Patsy Cline died in a plane crash. Patsy Cline is one that I haven't really listened to a whole lot, but I sort of respect on sort of a vocalist level. Obviously, like Buddy Holly died in a similar way. John Denver. It's tragic, but these things happen. Obviously, along with like Buddy Holly, there was the Big Bopper and who was the Richie Valens, who did La Bamba. Malice, pretty obscure, relatively obscure 80s metal band. Don McLean, American Pie. Here we have Kingdom Come. I'm sorry, no, it's not. It's Magnum, Kingdom of Madness. Magnum is a band that was pretty big. I don't know if they were big in Canada or if they were big in. I don't remember, but they weren't huge here, but they definitely were around for quite a while. They're still putting out new records. This one, oh, here's an interesting one. Right. Charles Manson, live at the San Quentin. Charles Manson, you know him, terrible killer, mass cult leader, infamously fucked out of his mind. Yeah, Charles Manson had a music career, and in fact worked with allegedly the Rolling Stones, most infamously the Beach Boys, where he penned songs like Heroes and Villains, which were released, I believe, on the Smiley Smile album. But there's a couple of live performances. This one, I believe, live at the San Quentin, I believe this was while he was in prison. So I don't remember exactly when it was recorded, but I believe it was not too long after he was incarcerated. But, he, after 1969 or so, he was basically in prison for life until he died just a couple of years ago. But it's not a very good music career, but, I kind of keep it as sort of a conversation piece, I think. Yngwie Malmsteen, wait, is it? Yeah, Trilogy. It's a pretty good. I like Yngwie Malmsteen. I can kind of take or leave him. Definitely a very good, amazing guitarist. Ray Manzarek. This is actually the organist for The Doors. Put out a solo album. A couple of solo albums, actually, that are pretty interesting, I think. If nothing else. Curtis Mayfield. This is a deluxe edition of this album. And actually, it came with a record mat that is on my record player to this day. Here we have... this is McCartney. So I think we can at least get to we can at least say we got to 3 of the 4 Beatles. I do have some other Wings albums, but those are obviously in the W. Ram, Paul McCartney. Maybe I should put them in with the Paul McCartney, if for nothing else than that I could save some room over here. But anyway, McCartney 2. This is a really good album. I was super into this basically around the time of 2019, 2020. I was super into this album. All of the McCartney self-titled albums are kind of interesting in sort of an experimental way. Basically, it was all just kind of him messing around with different equipment. He did all of these albums. And in fact, during the quarantine, he released a McCartney 3, which was just another collection of just messing around with shit. I personally didn't like it, but, yeah. I don't know. McCartney hasn't done a whole lot of good lately, music-wise, but, it's alright, I guess. Tug of War... Oh yeah, Paul McCartney, Tug of War. This is the one with Ebony and Ivory on it, I believe. And then we have... Is this Paul McCartney, I don't think. Pipes of Peace. No, I think it is McCartney. I actually don't even remember owning this one. I don't know if I've ever actually listened to it, but it's Paul McCartney, so... And Paul McCartney, Give My Regards to Broadway. Very strange thing. I don't entirely know what it is. I believe it's like some sort of soundtrack album, but I couldn't tell you. Cass McCombs. This one is interesting. So, for a little while, I was actually subscribed to this mail order service called VNYL, and I got a couple of albums through there. Some of them were more popular. Like I got Tool's Undertow album, which I gave to my one friend. But Kaz McCombs, this is a very, I would say, sort of like synth psychedelic band from the past 5 or 10 years. Really cool stuff. It like you let them know like some of the stuff that's in your record collection, and it'll kind of curate things based off of that. All right, here we go. This is probably, I think, the most valuable record I have. This one is Metallica, Kill 'Em All. And, oh shit, my battery's low. I thought I... Oh shit, it fell out of the power supply. Oh. I'm probably going to end with the M's anyway, but... Anyway, Kill 'Em All by Metallica. Really good album. It's their first album, and then if you flip it over, there's actually, well, you can't see it because it's like behind the record, but it's actually the tickets, the printout of the tickets that we got through email when I saw Metallica live. They put on just as good of a performance as everybody says, which is to say, very goddamn good. I didn't know he was a singer. Yeah, not many people do. But that's kind of how he rose to prominence. Is he? And in fact, awesome. Yeah, and in fact, that's I believe the theory was that Charles Manson meant to instruct his cult to kill somebody else, who I think was like a record producer, but he didn't know that the record producer had recently moved house, and who moved in instead was, well, Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate. And the killing of Sharon Tate was completely by accident. Charles Manson, to my knowledge, had no prior awareness of Sharon Tate, had no prior history with her, no altercation. It was just a very unfortunate case of wrong place at the wrong time. Okay, got it. But yeah, Kill 'Em All by Metallica. I can't remember the name of the specific record producer, but it was basically, the record producer was like, yeah, your shit sucks. We aren't going to sign you to any kind of label. Which, to be fair, his shit sucked, and I wouldn't have signed him to any record label. But, yeah, I think that was actually meant to be the victim. And because Manson didn't know, or you know what? It might not have been that he recently moved. I think Manson just had the wrong address and gave the wrong address to his cult followers. Metallica, Ride the Lightning, original press. Masters of Puppets, or if we go by the parody album that I definitely want to do, Pastor of Muppets. This is a 180-gram reissue. Also a 180-gram reissue, And Justice for All. And Justice for Bass. And Jason for All. We also have Metallica's Black Album, 180-gram reissue. And finally, we have the best Metallica album, Saint Anger. Oh wait, no, never mind. This one sucks. Yeah, if you don't know the history of Saint Anger, do look it up. It's very fascinating, but needless to say, it was just a huge dumpster fire. Molly Hatchet, Flirting with Disaster. Good Southern rock. Meet the Monkees. This one, I believe, is More of the Monkees. Yeah, this one has I'm a Believer on it. This is my second favorite album of all time, Days of Future Past by Moody Blues. I could go on forever as to why this album is great, but essentially what this was meant to be was just like kind of like a test recording so that RCA, or it wasn't RCA, it was someone was testing like some new recording equipment and they just wanted like some instrumentals. So they thought Moody Blues would be able to like come and orchestrate it. And then later on, it kind of just turned into this huge, it kind of grew and grew into this big thing where it became this monumental, arguably one of the first concept albums after Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. I would argue better than Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. And the thing with Moody Blues is they kind of knew early on that there was no fucking way they were going to be able to top it. So they didn't. Later Moody Blues was very good, but it was nowhere near as good as Days of Future Past. And they knew they couldn't replicate that again, so they didn't even try. Which one is this? In Search of the Lost Chord. An album that I would say, if Days of Future Past had not existed, would be the Moody Blues' best album. I think this one is To Our Children's Children. A Question of Balance. This is another really good Moody Blues album. It features the song Melancholy Man, which is a really good one. Every Good Boy Deserves Favor. This one is... Actually, I don't remember which one this is, and I can't quite read it. But another Moody Blues. This one is Moody Blues Caught Live. Live album, of course. Here we have Long Distance Voyage. This one is Moody Blues Believe. And this is one they released in the 80s. I can't remember the name of, but yeah, another good Moody Blues one. Van Morrison. That's an 80s album that wasn't very huge, but still a pretty decent album. This one is Motley Crue, Girls, Girls, Girls. Not in the best of shape. I have been meaning to get that one replaced at some stage. Motorhead, Ace of Spades, classic metal. Mott the Hoople. This one is just self-titled, I believe, but it features all the way from Memphis. The Best of Mountain, of course, the bands that would do songs like Mississippi Queen. Mountain Twin Peaks. This is a live album. This is the band I was talking about earlier, and I think we will end with the M's. The Move. This, Looking On. This is the same thing I was talking about when I was talking about ELO. This band had Roy Wood. It was fronted by Roy Wood, who would go on to start Electric Light Orchestra. And this was his band before it. And they didn't release a ton of albums. They released 4 albums. And only like 1 or 2, I think, are actually still available on Spotify. But I first found out about them actually through their Live at the Fillmore album, which is thankfully available on Spotify, not available on vinyl as far as I am aware. But that is a fantastic live album. I would call them like Baroque pop, acid pop, neoclassical rock, just very ambitious pop, even if it is meant to sort of be as accessible and juvenile as possible, lyrics-wise. There were a couple bands that were like that around this time. And then we have the Move Greatest Hits. This is a Pickwick Records compilation. Nails. This is a pretty cool... what have I heard? I think this is called emo. I think this falls under emo pop, Nails, but it features some pretty cool stuff from the 80s. Jolene, not Jolene, Loreen, I think it is, something like that. There's a interesting song, 50 lines about 50 girls, which is essentially just that. It doesn't have a chorus, it's just 50 lines about 50 different women. This is one of my favorite bands of all time, actually, Nazareth. You might not know much about Nazareth, but essentially they were... the big hits, I think, over here were Hair of the Dog and Love Hurts. Their cover of Love Hurts, which was actually originally an Everly Brothers tune. Way bigger in Europe, I think. But this is their first album. It's definitely a rock album. It has some elements of like classical and maybe like prog-ish. Some folk influence, I would say. The way they got their name actually was as a result of the band called The Band. Which, if you want to know why they're called that, that's a whole other can of worms. But essentially, there's a song that they did called The Wait, and the lyric goes, rode into Nazareth feeling about half past dead, and they named their song after that. I didn't know if you're the singer. Awesome. Awesome About You, Seeing Them. Yeah, I really like Metallica. Concert live, not the... Yeah, not the YouTube thing. Yeah, you're right. During like the... You're right. During the quarantine, they like would show like past shows from like throughout their history. Yeah, I forgot they did that, but you're right. No, I did see them, and it was before the quarantine. I haven't heard Days of Future Past. Yeah, no, it's a great album. I highly recommend checking it out. And yeah, okay. But yeah, Nazareth is one of my favorite bands. Um, there's a couple albums. I don't have all of them because they have like over 20 albums, I think, in their entire discography. But here's another one, Razma Naz. The problem with Nazareth is a lot of their shit is actually out of print. You can buy like used CDs of it, but at least on Spotify and at least in the United States, it's out of print, and you can't stream that. Loud and Proud. This one is actually out of print, and I'm very surprised by that because it's arguably one of their best. Same can be said with this one, Rampart. I wouldn't say it's a very good album, but it is still kind of a shame that it's out of print. This one is not out of print, though, and this is their most famous album, Nazareth, Hair of the Dog. And in fact, this is the one that I picked to be one of my favorite albums of all time. It's, I think, actually in my top 5. I think it is in my top 5 favorite albums of all time. But every song on there is just 10 out of 10, all killer, no filler. Check out Hair of the Dog by Nazareth if you ever want to check that out. Close Enough for Rock and Roll. This was Nazareth kind of attempting to do like a Sgt. Pepper's thing. I don't think it really worked out, but it does have some neat little bits and some neat musical ideas. Playing the Game. We have Expect No Mercy. This is another really good Nazareth album, and this one is thankfully in print, so you can listen to it on Spotify. Actually, I think the one guitarist of Nazareth just died, unfortunately, a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago at this point, which is definitely very tragic. But I know that they've had like a different vocalist for quite a while now. I can't remember his name, but it used to be Don McCafferty. Malice in Wonderland. Another one of my favorite album titles. But that, starting with that album and basically all throughout the 80s, they kind of tried to go in a more pop direction. Not to where I would say they were trying to sell out, because, I mean, they really didn't. It would have worked if they had sold out, but Malice in Wonderland, it's a more poppy album. I still really like it, though. I also really like The Full Circle. This is notable for its cover of the Eric Clapton song Cocaine. It's actually a live cover, and it's very good. It's like this real... It has... It's like an acoustic guitar, and it has this kind of like really exotic, I want to say like African style percussion with like wooden drums and things like that. Snaz, this is full on a live album, and I think also features the exact same cover of Cocaine. And then this one is 12 by 5. This features the song Dream On, which is, that was also kind of a hit for Nazareth, at least over in Europe, not so much here in the US. But I think that might have been their like other sort of brush with success, at least somewhat in the US. This one is The Nazz. This one was actually named after the Yardbirds. They did a song called The Nazz Are Blue. But the reason I picked this up actually goes back to The Move again. They did a song that was on that Live at the Fillmore album that I was hyping up. And essentially it is... what is it? Can't See a Thing to Open My Eyes. They did the original, and then The Move covered it when they did their live performance. And the Move, their cover is arguably, I don't know if it's the first metal song. I mean, like Helter Skelter and things like that definitely came out before, but it's one of the early. I would consider it to be like proto metal, metal before Black Sabbath, and more so metal before acts like Judas Priest and Iron Maiden. But it's a very heavy track, I would say. The entire album is really heavy, which again, maybe not something, which again is something kind of lost in ELO. They did dabble in the heavier moments. Check out Mama Bell, Mahmahbelle. That's a pretty heavy song. That's ELO, but their cover of the Naz's "Can't See a Thing to Open My Eyes" is really heavy, and the original version is really good too. It actually kind of starts with sort of a riff that's meant to be sort of a nod to the Who's "Can't Explain" or "I Can't Explain." Juice Newton. I don't remember the name of this album. It might be self-titled. Really good album. Major hit off of this album, of course, was "Angel in the Morning," which I think younger people might know as the song that opens up the first Deadpool movie. Stevie Nicks, Belladonna. This has a lot of hits on it. It has Edge of 17. It has the song Paper and Lace, I think it's called. The one they did with she did with Don Henley. Stop Dragging My Heart Around, which she did with Tom Petty. And the only good thing that Tom Petty ever recorded was Stop Dragging My Heart Around. Oh, that's not true. It's that and maybe Don't Come Around Here No More, but I fucking hate Tom Petty otherwise. Tom Petty might be one of my least favorite musicians ever. And it's purely just down to I just find his voice and I find his attitude and everything just so annoying. I do not like Tom Petty. I always just called him Discount Bob Dylan. He's like Bob Dylan, but even more annoying vocally and not even remotely as gifted lyrically. I hate Tom Petty, and I will. Yeah, I do not like Tom Petty. Nectar. I actually just picked this one up. I mainly picked it up for the album art, but I listened to a little bit of it, and it's a pretty good album. It's kind of like, if I remember, it's kind of like hard rockish, like from the early 80s. Night Ranger, Dawn Patrol. This is another one that my one friend from Utah really likes. And this was the only Night Ranger album I really liked. Later on, I kind of grew a bit fonder of Midnight Madness, which is the one with Sister Christian and Still Rockin' America. I grew a bit fonder of that one, but Dawn Patrol is a much better album anyway. I used to have Midnight Madness, but sadly I sold it. If I ever see it again, I'll pick it up. Nirvana, Live Unplugged. Amazing, amazing live album. In fact, you know what? I'm just going to say right here now my favorite live album of all time. I hesitate because, again, there is that Live at the Fillmore album from The Move, and there's also Unleashed in the East. I still think Nirvana Unplugged tops all of them, just for all of the really good covers that they do on that album. Ted Nugent. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Politics aside, Ted Nugent is an absolute fucking legend at the guitar. And that is also evident on the follow-up to Ted Nugent's self-titled Free For All. Maybe not as much in the songwriting. I think the album does have some kind of peaks and valleys, whereas Ted Nugent, I think, was... the self-titled album was good from front to back. But Free for All is still a decent album, and so is Cat Scratch Fever. Again, definitely low points in this album, but there's some good shit on the album as well. Then we start getting into even more rocky territory with Weekend Warriors. And the more you kind of go into Nugent's career, the worse it kind of gets. Intensity in 10 Cities. This is a live album. He released Live Gonzo, which was a double live Gonzo, I think it's called, which was a double album, and that one is supposed to be really good. I've seen it for sale a lot, but it's pretty expensive. I'm waiting to find a copy that's better. This one is just called Nugent. This one, Ted Nugent, I don't remember the title of this one, but, yeah, it's there are some okay albums from the 80s. Most of it just isn't very good. Ted Nugent, I think, really fell, like, from the first album, and even from the Amboy Dukes. Where he put out he was responsible for some really good songwriting, and especially some really good guitar playing. Gary Newman, The Pleasure Principle, early new wave, early MTV new wave, synthwave. Most famous song off of that album is Cars. Here in my car, I feel safest of all. That song. And then finally, and this will be the last album for tonight, Straight Outta Compton! Yeah. This is the other rap album that I have. It's just a really good album back to front, I think. So, anyway, that'll do it for my collection. Let me actually look at the comments just to make sure I responded to everything. Awesome about yeah. Oh, do you like Buckethead? I'm not too familiar with Buckethead. I don't know if he's ever actually released anything. All I know about Buckethead is that he performed with Guns N' Roses at least partially in the Chinese Democracy album. Beyond that, I know he's done collabs with other bands. I'm not too well versed in everything Buckethead has done. From what I understand, he is a very good guitarist. Obviously, with a name like Buckethead, pretty out there stage persona. All in all, just really good. So, yeah, that's my answer. I don't know a ton about Buckethead, but if I did, maybe I would appreciate them more. All right, that is going to do it for this live stream. Starting on Thursday, we will do and actually maybe we might be able to just finish everything. I don't have that much to do. Let me read the last comment from Chad. Good stream and collection. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the support. Of course, Chad being the official, yes, it is official, L. Diener Productions stan. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.